media.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. If you think that Justin Trudeau's World Economic Forum or WEF-style lockdown measures were gone from Canada after the pandemic, well, I've got some sour news for you. They're back, and they're going to be back in most major cities in full control. Now, what am I talking about? Well, let's break it all down so that you understand where I'm coming to this conclusion before everybody jumps down my throat. When you think back to the pandemic, there were a lot of rumors circling around when you think about Klaus Schwab and infiltrating the cabinets. And of course, we get into talking about restricting food, restricting supplies. We saw it during the pandemic when people were hoarding toilet paper and hand sanitizer, people essentially going crazy. Then we hear rumors that with the carbon tax, farmers are going to be restricted as to how much crops they can grow so that there is a national food shortage. We've talked about shrinkflation before and just how badly that's affecting the country. But then I hear rumors going around that the next step of the process is to encourage everybody to get electric vehicles so that, of course, you're more dependent on the electric grid and not oil and gas so that they can control electricity. They can control, when they talk about digital currencies and digital ID, it's all about control. The government wants control. I once thought this was a conspiracy, and the more and more time goes on, the more it seems to poke its head out and say, hey, this is actually happening when you look at the big picture. Now, the last rumor circulating around that is that if you control the water supply, you control the electricity, you control the food, you take away people's rights to defend themselves, well, of course, you end up with what we currently have in Calgary, where those measures have returned full force. And I don't want to be the one to talk about it. Now, if you've heard about Calgary's water main break, and the plethora of problems that are going on in regards to it, I want to show you right here. This is the pipe. This is the water main break that's burst. Now, when I came out and said this isn't going to be fixed, originally Jody Gondek had said that it was going to be fixed by last Thursday and that it would take a few more days or even a week for the city to build up its water supply again in order for people to be able to get back to normal, in order to bring water back in for Calgarians. Now, of course, that didn't happen. I said it wasn't going to happen, and Jody Gondek has come out and said that it's going to be a rather extended period of time before we are going to see that. When you look at this pipe, this is a pipe in the north section of Calgary, and it is to be said that this pipe brings in roughly 60% of Calgary's water supply. Now, I'm no expert. Let's take a look at the tweet first, but it says, here's your conspiracy. This was the maintenance done in April. You feel that would hold up together, plugging a hole and using wires to band it? Truth is, the pipe was most likely already leaking a lot of water. Then, due to negligence, it burst. Now, I'm not insinuating that Jody Gondek intentionally caused a water main break. I mean, look at that shoddy job. Look at what's going on here with this pipe. It's unbelievable. We talked about this on Friday's stream, on Friday Night Fringe. If you haven't joined us for those streams, you should. But essentially what's going on here is negligence. And this water main break is being used as a catalyst to propagate more lockdown-style measures. I called it. I said it was going to happen. And here we go with Jody Gondek. Now, again, the water main was supposed to be repaired. We were supposed to be talking this week about people getting back to normal, people getting summer back in order. That still may happen, and I'm going to get into that. But first, listen to what Jody Gondek is suggesting here that we do in order to combat the problem that's happening with Calgarians right now. As again, the south end of town uses the Glenmore Reservoir. We have adequate water supply, as I'm aware of, in there. We just had a bunch of rain over the weekend. Here we go. Let's listen to what Jody Gondek has to say.
At 8 a.m. this morning, I signed the paperwork to declare a local state of emergency for the city of Calgary. This is not a decision that was made lightly, but as we shared yesterday at 5 p.m., the investigation of the broken feeder main pipe revealed that there are 5 more areas that are in need of repairs. Our city operations team has shared these necessary repairs mean that we are looking at another 3 to 5 weeks before water is flowing as it normally would in our city.
So again, first, what happened, and one thing that wasn't included in this was 2 gentlemen were injured on the site of the pipe replacement, saying, well, because they're injured, now we can't continue the work. So that's going to delay things. Then it's, well, now we've gone out of our way and found more problems within the pipes. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it just seems to fall in the realm of coincidence, doesn't it? That, hey, some guys got injured, we have to stop working because the unions won't allow us to continue. And then it's, oh, well, we're back to work, but now we found some problems down the line, and it's going to result in another 3 to 6 weeks of more water issues for the city. Delay, delay, delay. And there had been rumors speculating all the way back to February. I know I've said it in other videos that Jyoti Gondek somehow was going to restrict water use in the city of Calgary. In fact, City Hall now talking about permanent water restrictions for the residents and saying that they're going to control when you can and can't use the water that you pay for. Not to mention, just after they raised property taxes roughly almost 9% this year on Calgary residents. Let's continue with her wacko policies and what she actually encourages people to do to get around this crisis.
That's 3 to 5 more weeks of your best water conservation efforts. And that is difficult to say, and I'm sure it's difficult to hear. So, Calgary, what I can tell you is that if we can make this happen faster, we will absolutely make it happen faster. And I'm determined to do everything that I can to do so. I promise that to you. When the news broke yesterday, I reached out to talk directly with the Premier and the Provincial Municipal Affairs Minister, and both offered the full support of the province. At 8:30 p.m. last night, I also met with the provincial government's Emergency Management Cabinet to discuss how the province can support our efforts to resolve this situation as quickly and effectively as possible. And I am very grateful to Premier Smith, to Minister McIver, and the provincial government for their continued support and encouragement to reach out and discuss the situation and give up-to-date feedback to them every day. While the city is reaching out to municipalities across the continent to source parts, equipment, and possible expertise, I'm also reaching out to the private sector, and they have been reaching out to me. Here in Alberta, we have a world-leading energy sector and companies ready and willing to discuss solutions. I want to bring our best and brightest to the table and get this issue resolved for Calgarians as quickly as possible. This is an all-hands-on-deck situation. Restoring your water service is my absolute #1 priority. I reached out to industry last night, and I look forward to meeting with them in the coming days and making connections so that members of our city emergency operations team have a sounding board. Now, I hate to do this to you, Calgary, but I'm going to have to do it again.
Here it
We are going
comes.
to need to reduce our water use, and I'm relying on you so that we can get through this. We have managed to stabilize our use because yesterday's numbers are the same as the ones from Thursday. That is good in terms of stabilizing the use, but we are still at that maximum threshold of 480 million liters used. I'm going to ask you to do a little bit more every day. We've also asked our commercial and industrial water users in the city to cut back on their use. And today I'm also asking all businesses to consider the ways in which you can reduce your water usage, and that can involve allowing many of your employees to work from home. If anyone is able to do so, I think it would save them the time of having a shower in the morning, and no one has to worry about what they look or smell like for that matter. I think it's an interesting solution to offer people the opportunity to work from home.
Does any of this sound familiar to you guys? Any of it? I mean, take a look at Jyoti Gondek here. Does she look like she hasn't showered in multiple weeks? Do her clothes look wrinkled or dirty to you? No, they look freshly steamed and pressed and clean, and her hair looks like it was done by a stylist, in fact, just before coming onto camera to address the plebs of Calgary. This is the issue. She says, well, I'm going to have to rely on you, the city of Calgary, to restrict, and I'm going to have to ask you to do a little bit more. All hands on deck. We're all in this together. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Am I right? I mean, am I taking crazy pills here? But does this not all chime in and sound familiar? I'm not, again, debating if a water main has broken, but it's the rhetoric coming out from it. And the requests being at work from home, stay in your house, don't go anywhere. The government cares, right? Let's continue.
And it also means you can manage your flushing at home, which you can't often do at work. And I know this sounds a little bit frivolous or trivial at times to talk about flushing toilets. But the truth of the matter is, if every household in Calgary did one less toilet flush per day, we would save 12 million liters of water. So it is a lot of water, and it is a way that you can help out. And while we are saying thanks today for the rain that's going to be coming to help our plants, our lawns, and our vegetable gardens, I thought it would be appropriate to quote my friend from Airdrie, Mayor Peter Brown. He said, "This is not a burden. We are fortunate to have taps that we can turn on where fresh water comes out. Right now, we just need to continue to use a little bit less." And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Calgary Emergency Management Agency Chief Sue Henry.
Now, what's really hypocritical and funny about that statement when she brings up Airdrie Mayor Peter Brown is that he came out and it wasn't such a calm declaration. In fact, he came out and said Calgarians shouldn't be complaining about their water supply. Third world countries don't even have clean drinking water, and you should just be happy that we're trying to fix things around here. Now, that's not verbatim, but in a nutshell, that's basically how he put it, that we're all just disrespectful because we're not granting the mayor the stability to say, hey, this is perfectly normal that a section of pipe like this takes multiple weeks to fix. Again, at a time when the city has shown it has a spending problem, when they've thrown money out the window at frivolous artwork, at studies, at plebiscites that do essentially nothing, where they don't listen to the common citizen, and they've raised taxes to astronomical levels, you think they would have the resources, the staff, the experts to handle such a travesty or such a problem. In fact, there was a pipe offered from local towns in Alberta. And instead, I've been told that the new piece of pipe that's being shipped, I don't know if it's a special piece of pipe, but it's coming all the way from San Diego, which is going to take more time. Now, one of the things I wanted to touch on with Jyoti Gondek saying, well, if we can finish it faster, we will. I believe that part of this is in tune that the Calgary Stampede, which is a major city event, is on its way. And of course, businesses, car washes, etc., restaurants have not reduced their water use. They haven't had to pull back or shut down, despite Jyoti Gondek saying she's reached out and asked them to. I feel that either this is going to go on for the entire summer, that Jyoti Gondek is going to essentially rob Canadians of their water during one of the hottest times of the year, or she's going to come out just before Stampede and attempt to look like a hero and say, look, we all pulled together, Calgary, we did it, we fixed this problem, now we're going to talk about future restrictions. Now, when we talk about municipalities and people saying, hey, Derek, you're blowing this out of proportion, obviously not. Here's South Calgary Councilor Dan McLean, and I've often said, while I back Dan McLean and while I think he has good common sense style ideas, he's part of the reason I've thrown my hat into the ring to run for mayor of Calgary. Because this man, I can tell you, most definitely is going to run for mayor in the next election. And while I've said you're not going to get a terrible mayor if you vote for Dan McLean, you're just going to get more government-style politics, which is why I threw my hat in as a citizen, because I'm sick and tired of this. Dan McLean, I have accused before of being a fence sitter, that he waits until the opportune moment to try to diffuse a situation by agreeing with people when they're upset. We saw this with Calgary's infamous bag bylaw that came out that was eventually repealed, where Jyoti Gondek said that if you go through a drive-through, you now have to pay more money in order to get a bag at somewhere like McDonald's. They either hand you your food item by item, or you pay 15 cents for a bag. Places like Walmart, local grocery stores started charging upwards of $1 for some of their reusable bags as punishment for forgetting your bags, and they have not reduced that since the repeal. But of course, Dan McLean at that time said nothing until the bylaw came out, until people were mad, and then all of a sudden he came out and said, hey, everybody, I've been against this from day one. I don't agree with it. I'm going to try and repeal it. But he waited for the pushback. There was no outrage from Dan McLean prior to that bylaw coming into effect. There was no warning that that bylaw was coming into effect. And yet again, we see here on Twitter, it's good to see we're all pulling out the stops and getting the province and private sector involved to get this situation fixed ASAP. Rick Bell says that Gondek appeals to frustrated, angry Calgarians in water crisis, according to Calgary Herald. Now, of course, friend of the channel, Marty Up North, chimes in immediately and says, when this is all said and done, all councillors should step down. You have one job, and you all failed at it miserably. I couldn't agree more. It doesn't take 6 weeks to fix a patch of pipe. Keep in mind, we're in week 2 of this water crisis. And you can see over here, Gondek is actually trending on Twitter at the time that I'm filming this video. Now, of course, Dan McLean comes in immediately. Oh, I'm not happy either, Marty. Like many Calgarians, I have many questions and will be looking for answers. This is a typical statement from him. Again, I'm not trying to be critical here. I'm just trying to point out that up here he's talking about, hey, we're all in it together, ladies and gentlemen. And down here, oh yeah, Marty, because you have a following, because your voice could threaten my image. Oh, I got questions. I'm going to need answers. I'm going to need multiple answers when time comes through, Marty. And of course, the first reply says McLean for mayor. It's insane. It's insane. Again, you're not going to get a bad mayor if you vote for Dan McLean. You're just going to get more government-style politics from Dan McLean. Now, what's come since and what is going to come when I talk about future Trudeau-style lockdown measures is, in fact, neighbors snitching, and we've already had it happen. If you joined me again on Friday's stream, I had shown a tweet in which I used a hose last week to clean some dog mess. My dog had an accident in the house. I cleaned up the mess and then took a vinyl mat outside to quickly spray the mess off of the mat. I literally turned on my hose for 10 seconds and just gave it a quick spray and moved back into the house. And of course, my neighbors contacted the city and contacted bylaw and snitched because God forbid somebody use their water for a mere few seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, we're right back to where we were at the pandemic. Nosy neighbors willing to snitch, lockdown, don't go to work, work from home, don't leave your house, listen to the government. We're all in this together. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. There's a good old Ghostbusters quote. I know I've used that one before. But we're at the end of times. I don't know when this is going to end. Simply, my response, and the same response I had when bylaw came around, is that I will not comply. Now, it's not because I'm a jerk. It's not because I don't agree that there is a crisis going on. But it's simply a matter of, even if this entire situation was legitimate, and every fact that the city of Calgary is giving us is legitimate, and that there is no weird shenanigans going on, that there is no World Economic style politics coming in from our installed mayor, it still is very hard to believe anything the government says after several years of abuse in terms of the pandemic. We're at a tipping point where trust in the government is waned. It is gone. It's not coming back anytime soon. And anytime you talk to people and say, we got to buckle down and batten down the hatches, you're going to end up with situations like this where people don't believe you. Let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think this is the start of restrictions? Do you think this is a blueprint for other cities? Are we going to see World Economic style lockdowns, Justin Trudeau style lockdowns continue across Canada, controlling the water, controlling the electric, controlling our food supply? Let me know your thoughts down below. Tell me if I'm taking crazy pills. I'd sure like to know. If it's your first time here, I hope this very lengthy video, has earned your subscription. Make sure while you're hitting that button, you click the bell for notifications. Join us live here on the channel every Friday for Friday Night Fringe, where we go over things like this, as well as federal politics and everything going on in the world of Canadian politics, and a little bit of back and forth within our community. I always look forward to hearing what you guys have to say every single Friday night. In fact, we broke a viewer record again this last week. I'd love to see if we could break it again this upcoming Friday. You guys have been fantastic, and I always look forward to hearing what each and every one of you has to say in those live streams. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.